Dracarys, hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show, Premier League Predictions Part 2. My name is Darryl Grove and I'm joined by the man with all the hot takes. It's Taylor Rockwell, hello.
Hello, is that your second fire pun there?
Is it?
I mean, Dracarys and then hot takes.
Yeah,
so.
We're on theme. There's a theme. Because the Premier League 2017-2018 is going to be fire.
That's good. It works better than like a man whose grain train is on fire. That doesn't quite work. Whose future is in flames. Also not an ideal way to start the show.
Well, we may have some coaches whose futures are in flames on today's show.
Decent chance.
If you missed part one, we already did Arsenal through Liverpool, our very specific predictions for things we think will happen for these teams this season. Today, we're going the other 10 teams, starting with Manchester City and going all the way through to West Ham United.
If you did listen to yesterday's show or didn't, it's also worth reminding or telling that we are also revisiting our predictions from last season, some of which help us better understand the current season.
Yeah, I'm against doing that, but I think I lost that battle.
I wonder why that could possibly be.
Oh, quick note on yesterday's show. I mentioned that I was worried about Arsenal's central midfield, and I saw Granit Xhaka have a horrible clearance in the Community Shield, which led to Chelsea scoring. Heard a lot from Arsenal fans about how he had 100% pass completion in that game. So, okay, I get that's great. So, yeah, good for him. It's a good stat. But I also, more interestingly, heard from other Arsenal fans who said he was actually very good, especially when they went to the back three. Xhaka was the guy that everything was going through in midfield, and they're actually feeling good about him for this season. So it's worth just putting that out there, that maybe Granit Xhaka could be up for a big season.
So we're not going to go like full apology. We're going to go mea culpa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also worth noting then that this is another new tradition, apparently, is that now it's 2 years running that you've recorded part one and then in part two had to apologize or just clarify an Arsenal statement.
Last year it was that I thought Theo Walcott would be Arsenal's main striker.
I believe you more or less guaranteed it.
Yeah, well, because they did it towards the end of the season before, like instead of having Big Giroud up there, but in the end it was Alexis Sanchez up there. This year I can guarantee, almost, it's going to be Alexandre Lacazette.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling good about that.
I think what we've learned like the most from doing these shows is to add those sort of qualifiers. Like I can guarantee more or less. Yeah, you got to get those in there. You got to qualify an absolute and then you're golden.
So you ready for today's teams, Taylor? We are
indeed.
starting in Manchester with Manchester City. What did we say last year and was it correct?
So you were predicting for Man City. You said Guardiola will have a very positive influence on John Stones. He will become an England regular. And you said he would have a very negative influence on Raheem Sterling. You predicted that Sterling would be sold in January.
Wow. So I got that wrong.
I believe so, unless I missed a lot of news for a very long time. So I don't know how much you got it wrong, because obviously Sterling is still there. But it's kind of debatable on John Stones, because he is technically an England regular. Whether or not that would have happened without Pep Guardiola, it's up for debate. But I mean, so like in certain ways his game was elevated. Then in other more public ways, maybe he had some problems.
Well, I think he had some high-profile mistakes, but it doesn't mean he had a terrible season all around. He just had some very high-profile bad moments. As far as I understand it, he is the starting centre-back for this season. So I think things are still looking good for John Stones.
All right.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll give you like 0.25 on that one. So what have you got for us this season?
Okay.
Or maybe more appropriately, what do Man City have for us this season?
So my very specific prediction, I'm going headline first.
All right.
Manchester City will provide the best value for money in terms of goals per game next season.
Okay.
That's all in, like goals for and goals against.
I see.
You will see the most goals if you go to the Etihad or follow them away.
I'm curious why that would be the case, so let's talk about it.
Okay, so they were the fourth highest last season. There were more goals in games involving Arsenal, Liverpool and Burnley, I think for different reasons.
Yep. Actually, that's surprising because they kept it kind of tight, but on the road they did not, so there it is.
So if you think about Manchester City, a lot of people kept telling Pep last year, don't play at the back, do it differently. And even in the Champions League, they told him maybe tighten things up when you go to Monaco. And he kept saying, no, we have to attack more. The way we're going to win is to attack more. And if you look at his signings, especially the big headline signings have been the new fullbacks, right? 4 fullbacks out. Do not need these guys. Bringing in Kyle Walker, Mendy, and then Danilo, who can play either side. So that's why the 3 fullbacks replace the 4 fullbacks. Yeah. The big names, Walker and Mendy, they're really best known as attacking fullbacks who join the attack at pace. And they are going to leave holes behind them. Right? So Man City, I think, are going to be a more attacking team. Will concede more goals, will score more goals. So value for money in terms of goals is watching Man City in the upcoming season.
So question then that you might not be able to answer because you're not Pep Guardiola. If you have those fullbacks who want to kind of bomb forward, use that pace to get in on the attack, do you envision them less frequently coming inside the way Pep Guardiola's fullbacks have done in years
So this
past?
is only. So I haven't watched them in pre-season. This is only based on my concept of Kyle Walker.
Mike, he is a concept more than a person, to be fair.
And my concept of Benjamin Mendy is that when I've seen them play for Monaco and Spurs in the past, they are very wide players and they love to get forward. You don't see them ever drift. And you don't think of Kyle Walker as a ball-playing fullback, right? Nope. I mean, he has a decent touch, but he's not Philipp Lahm or David Alaba in terms of sort of technique that can be brought into central midfield. So I kind of have this idea that Pep's going to give up on that because he wasn't really that successful anyway, right? And it's going to be more about just fullbacks joining the attack and really pushing it up on the opposition, which obviously leaves holes going the other way.
Interesting, though. So then
I see them running back in the other direction at pace as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so then this would be Pep Guardiola adjusting his approach then? Is that
yeah, but only by being more right. Do you know what I mean? He's like, no, I was more right. We're going more attacking. Yeah, but he's a stubborn man.
But if you got your fullbacks looking to bomb forward, it then maybe means you're not going to try to play out of the back as much as well, right?
Oh, no. When you start building from the back, they'll be involved. But then they'll sort of then join the actual attack later on.
Yeah, plus you're right, and especially it's because he tends to send the centre backs wide, have the midfielder drop in, and the fullbacks push up.
Yeah, so you'll still see them playing the ball back. You'll still see John Stones maybe get in trouble once or twice. The interesting thing also is going to be the new goalkeeper, Edson Maurez, I think is how you pronounce it, Brazilian keeper. They signed from Benfica. I went and did some research into him.
I think you might have it wrong. In my notes, I have Ederson neck tattoo is what I think I have for his name.
Is that what you'll be
wrong? Yeah.
So I saw some footage of him. He is super confident in the best and worst way.
Oh boy!
He will come charging off his line and he will get there first.
Oh, so he factors into this prediction as well.
So if he's on a one-on-one situation, he will charge at you and hold his ground and there's a lot of highlights of him batting one-on-ones away with a fist. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
really good stuff. And he's also apparently very confident on the ball. You remember some of the Claudio Bravo stuff was he didn't I know he's comfortable with his feet, but he also panicked several times and it led him into trouble. Remember the thing when he had to 2-footed tackle Wayne Rooney at some point?
I'm just wondering, I know that they had prior experience together, and Pep Guardiola was keenly aware of Claudio Bravo.
Yeah.
But it does feel a little bit like what happens when you lie on your resume for a job. I totally know PowerPoint or totally know Photoshop. Yeah. Can someone teach me Photoshop really fast?
Like John Ralphio in The Accountant job.
Yes. I understand you're totally familiar with QuickBooks and Quicken. Yeah, so all of that is a lie. I do not know how to dribble out of the back, and I will not pass to anyone's feet.
And I also think this is a big upgrade for Man City, right? Yeah. There's no argument against the idea that Kyle Walker and Benjamin Mendy are better fullbacks at this stage in their careers than the guys who left, right? And also just faster and more aggressive than the guys who left. Then you also add Gundogan's coming back.
Yep.
Gundogan, we watched him at Borussia Dortmund. He was key. He's really important. I think when he's a regular in the Man City team, that's really exciting. Bernardo Silva is there.
Yep.
You remember Bernardo Silva?
I do.
He is not fast, but he is impossible to take the ball off of, right? Do you remember? He just would dribble in circles and then release a killer pass. And everyone would be like, "Ugh."
Yeah, the response you're hearing is because he was also heavily linked with Manchester United. I would have enjoyed that.
So imagine there's a team that can choose Bernardo Silva or David Silva. And they're kind of similar-ish players in terms of holding onto the ball, dribbling, impossible to tackle, and then picking out a killer pass.
More Silvas.
It is almost like Guardiola will just pick a Silva for whichever one fits for today. Then you've got Gabriel Jesus. Remember the form he was in at the end of last season? I really think Man City are prepped to go, and they will still... Yeah, Taylor's pointing at the board where I have written in chalk, or Taylor's quoting me in chalk, that Josh Sargent is going to supplant Gabriel Jesus in 2 years. That's a future prediction.
So yes, I remember the form of Gabriel Jesus.
It's a future prediction. So basically, my point is Manchester City look really good, but Pep Guardiola is not going to quote unquote learn from his mistakes. He's just going to be doubling down on the way he wants Man City to play, which is to go all out attack and consequences be damned.
He probably was that kid in elementary school who was like, what's 3 + 4? It's 8? No, it's 7. No, I'm pretty sure it's 8. I'm sticking with that.
And eventually the school would just change the textbook to be 8.
Yeah. When he somehow became math champion, they changed it.
So there we go. That's my prediction for Man City. The most goals, when you add up for and against, they'll have the most goals in the Premier League next season.
Alrighty. Well, that moves us to Manchester United, who
I've heard of them.
I will be predicting for. I believe last year when I made my predictions, you just leaned back and said you weren't going to talk anymore. I guess anticipating that I would be going for a while.
Okay.
I'm going to try not to do that this time, but I'll start with...
You notice I'm leaning forward
I
right now.
Appreciate that. Last year I went all in on Zlatan. I said he would score 20 or more goals in the Premier League.
Ooh, did he?
He did not. He was very close. The injury did not help. He had 17 goals at time of injury. He had 28 in all competitions. But that does kind of lead into what I think might happen for Manchester United this year, which is that I think they will be more successful in terms of the attack than they were last year. And that's like sort of like, yeah, obviously they've signed Romelu Lukaku. They should be better. But I think it's also other elements that have come into play that will help United be more successful in the attack. I'll get into those in a second, but first I'll just go straight out with my prediction.
Okay.
Romelu Lukaku will score more Premier League goals than Zlatan did last year, is my prediction.
I mean, didn't he already do that last year?
Yeah, but maybe I'm not sure.
I think Lukaku was second top scorer with 25 behind Harry Kane.
All right, so then should I say he'll go with? Should I just then double down and say he'll score more than 25 goals?
Yeah, he'll score more than Lukaku last season.
Oh boy, okay, I'll do that. That. He'll score more with Man United this season than he did with Everton last season.
Yeah,
I feel like you might have just lied me into something. That's fine though, and I think it's a big part of that is. First of all, Zlatan Ibrahimovic last season was like far and away United's goal threat. I think the next top scorer, he had 28, as I said, in all competitions. The next came Mata with 10 in all competitions and 6 in the Premier League. So not a lot of goals coming in. I don't know how much that will change. I think he will still be the primary goal threat. I think sometimes it will be Lukaku and Marcus Rashford, but I think he'll be the big man because he is the big man. That said, I have a kind of a bonus prediction as well. It is that Paul Pogba will be the Premier League Player of the Year.
I would love that to happen.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before, I'm a big Paul Pogba fan. I think he actually had a good season last year, but people were somehow still frustrated with him. I think Paulie Pogs is just a joy to watch. I love how he plays.
Yes, and so obviously blooded in a season, a year in the Premier League helps. Obviously has the chemistry with Lukaku as well as other players. We've seen that. But the biggest thing that I think is going to allow Paul Pogba to be Paul Pogba is the arrival of Matic. Okay. Because he has that kind of dedicated destroyer in midfield. If United go with a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, Matic being there allows Pogba to do Pogba things. He doesn't have to do quite as much as he did last year.
Yeah.
And so I think you can kind of set him free, essentially, and you'll see more of what made him special for Juventus.
Yeah, so I remember with Juventus, I was always impressed with his defensive game because he was so big and strong. I remember him always stepping across people, knocking them over and taking the ball.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like he was the only guy doing some defending. You know what I'm saying? Like at Man United last year, I felt like sometimes there was too much defensive responsibility.
Absolutely.
Placed on him. I remember a game where we were watching him.
We remember the exact same thing.
Yeah, he didn't track his man and they got him behind. I can't remember what the game was. But yeah, maybe if there's less emphasis on him doing those things, he's freer to go and create.
We've talked about this a lot at different times, but it's about how sometimes, strangely enough, when a player is thinking, it's the worst possible thing.
Yeah.
Because if you see
him...
him...
have flow.
Yeah, because if you see him, and the sequence that I remember is him sort of like dropping into space, but sort of thinking he was covering, but then looking around and realizing he was in the wrong spot and like trying to slide over, but then he was sliding over at the wrong time.
Like doing his impression of what he's seen a defensive midfielder do.
Exactly. And so I just think with Matic in there, and then sometimes I do think when they've got to lock it down, it'll be some combination of like Matic and Herrera, and then that still allows Paul Pogba to kind of roam free and do Pogba things.
If they want to lock it up, they'll go Fellaini.
Yeah, yes, that's very true. I would add, though, I would feel way better about my Romelu Lukaku prediction if United had, for lack of a better term, like a proper winger. They have lots of players who can play wide, but they almost always...
Mkhitaryan.
But they all prefer to come inside
Lingard,
and kind of get involved in more centrally in the attack.
Yeah.
United, since Ferguson retired, I would say, have had problems having somebody who can cross the ball well. They don't have that sort of... No one does, but they don't have that David Beckham from 40 yards out can put it on somebody's head. I would feel way better if they got that, because then Lukaku's going to have better service.
That was part of Everton's game, right? They would just cross it in for him to get on the end of a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're hearing still the rumors of Perisic coming in from Inter Milan. I don't think that's going to happen.
I feel like it would have happened by now because it's been rumoured for like 2 months.
Yeah, as soon as he went on preseason with Inter, I think United's interest waned. So there is still some speculation that they're going to try to sign a winger, and I feel like, I don't actually have it in my notes, but it's probably worth noting that the rumors, and we'll talk about it when we get to scouting. Exactly. No, although a equally white-sounding guy, Gareth Bale, is still very much in the rumor mill because of the kind of uncertainty about Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah.
So I think that rumor is going to continue to grow, and maybe this is my homerness or fandom. I feel like there's maybe a little bit of truth to that rumor.
Interesting.
I think maybe there might be some backroom conversations happening, and I'm not pumped about it because it's going to be the most money ever.
Oh, well, United need another Welshman. I think things have never been the same since Giggs retired.
Yeah. So, yes, I've got Romelu Lukaku will outscore Romelu Lukaku, and Paul Pogba will be the Premier League Player of the Year.
I was really expecting some sort of Pogba Lukaku link up prediction of like they would have the most sort of assist to goals thing. You know, like top of the charts last year, I think was Eriksen to Kane. Like I thought you might see Pogba to Lukaku.
Well, I know you don't follow them as religiously as I do, so maybe you don't know that that Romelu Lukaku's feelings have been hurt lately. Not really, but he posted a photo to Instagram of Pogba sitting next to Matic, and I think he captioned it, Nemanja arrives and he leaves me. So, final tiny little thing.
Romance.
Yeah, final tiny little point just for people who are curious. There is some uncertainty about what United are actually going to do from a formation standpoint this season.
3 at the back or 4 at the back?
Exactly, yeah. So
isn't that the question for every Premier League team?
Exactly. So I think you'll see them basically rotate at times between roughly a 4-1-4-1 and a 3-5-2. So just wanted to throw that in there. It'll be interesting to see which one they gravitate towards more often as the season goes on.
It may be Jose may do horses for courses.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I'm sure he knows that saying too.
Okay, to another, and he probably does living in England, to another United, Newcastle United. All right, I'm going to lead with my prediction. Rafa Benitez will be the first manager to walk.
Ooh.
Rafa Benitez will be the first manager to resign this upcoming season.
It's interesting. Okay.
I don't think he'll get fired, but because they tend to hold on to people in terrible situations at Newcastle and just see how much torture they can stand. But he's already grumbling. He's been grumbling all summer about possibly quitting because of Newcastle United's transfer policy.
Oh, wow.
He has wanted a striker all summer. He tried to get Tammy Abraham. Newcastle did not move fast enough. Could not get him. He's also, I think Newcastle have been kind of negotiating for Joselu, a big Spanish striker who plays for Stoke, and Newcastle are nowhere near Stoke's asking price, which wasn't that high, apparently. So I think Rafa Benitez is a little frustrated at one, how slow they are in making transfers happen, and two, how stingy they're being in terms of how much they're willing to spend.
And I can understand his frustration because it's not often that you have... I mean, he's a high-profile manager. He's a Champions League winning manager. That he sticks with the club when they go down. It would have been very easy and probably kind of accepted for him to jump ship. He would get a little heat, but...
Well, he's got like a big loyalty aura about him right now because he did go down with them last year. It wasn't all his fault because he came in late, I believe. But then he stayed with them.
That's what I'm saying.
To come back up. But if he comes back up and then realises that they're not willing to sort of... It's not like he's asking for the moon, right? He's not asking, go sign Leo Messi. He's asking for he's asking for like a reserve Stoke striker, and they're not, a Chelsea striker that's going to go on loan, and they're not able to make that happen. I can see that being really frustrating.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is like to stick with them, you kind of have to imagine that he would think like, okay, I'll stick with you. I believe we can get back up, but when we do, we got to change some stuff, right? Totally.
Yeah, we got you, Rafa. We got you.
Checks in the mail. Don't worry about it.
So to start the season, Dwight Gale, top scorer last season, 23 goals in the Championship, is injured.
Okay.
And even Dwight Gale... I
was already sort of like,
exactly.
Really?
So I watched some footage of Dwight Gale. Actually, weirdly impressive because you think of him as like, oh, not that great, right? Scored 23 goals, a lot of them inside the box. So many finishes inside the 6-yard box. He's a classic kind of poacher. I feel like that's a lot easier to do in the Championship than in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think chances are at more of a premium in the Premier League. So I don't think he was ever going to be...
More games as well, just from like a sheer number standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he 23 in the Championship is 1 in 2.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's 46 games. Yeah. So the backups are Alex Mitrovic, who did not do all that well last season and apparently has not looked very good in pre-season because Gale's injured. So Mitrovic is probably going to start the season. And maybe Ayoze Perez, who's really more of like a wide attacking midfielder. So they are really going to struggle for goals. I actually think there's going to be trouble. Because Newcastle fans have big expectations, as they should, because Newcastle is a gigantic club. And they're going to have essentially a not great Championship team competing in the Premier League.
All right, so if you don't mind me asking, so when we do these predictions, we tend to focus on like the teams that we're previewing, and then we have like a little bit of knowledge occasionally about the club. But I haven't followed much with Newcastle.
Okay.
And so we talked about like Huddersfield yesterday and how they're kind of like, we're not going with any Premier League experience. We want to stick with what's gotten us here and players that can execute that system. Sounds like Newcastle have gone with kind of the people that I remember. Like, I remember a lot of those names. So have they sort of stuck with the people that were there, gotten rid of some of the dead weight or some of the more expensive weight, and brought in Championship caliber, basically?
There's been a bit of... I can't remember all the transfers, but there's been a bit of turnover, obviously, between being relegated a couple of years ago and coming back up now. So it's not going to be the exact same team that you remember.
Well, it should be. They should bring everybody back. But I guess what I mean, though, is like, so it's kind of sounds like it's a lot of the same players that I remember with some other players brought in, but it doesn't sound like they've really done much to really push themselves to that next level that they're going to need to be.
It's not been a revamp. I mean, one of the guys that was brought in the Championship was DeAndre Yedlin.
Yep.
DeAndre Yedlin, hamstring injury, not going to start the season. So you're going to see Javier Manquillo, who I think was on loan at Sunderland last season, and Jesus Gamez fighting it out for that right-back spot. And then when Yedlin comes in, he kind of needs to hope that maybe those guys haven't impressed so much. Yeah. So maybe as a US men's national team fan, you should be hoping that Newcastle don't do all that well to start the season, and they'll maybe need Yedlin to come back in.
Or you've just made me very upset here. How long is Yedlin out?
2 or 3 weeks, I think.
Okay, so not long enough. My fear for a second...
You worried about the World Cup qualifiers?
Well, no, it was more so like, what if he's out for a month, and then by the time he's healthy again, Benitez has been sacked or walked, and then it's like, oh, new manager in, hasn't seen Yedlin play, and now we're in trouble.
Well, the way transfers are going, it's unlikely they'll sign like a really expensive right back to replace him. So one of my other predictions is that Rafa Benitez, anytime there's a Rafa Benitez team, I remember him always sort of setting up in a way that he identifies the opposition strengths, he sets his team up to defend kind of well, almost in a Jose Mourinho kind of way, right? Like very defensively organised, have a game plan. So I expect them to not concede too many goals, but not score too many either. So contra my Man City prediction, where I'm thinking there's the most goals for and against, there'll be the least goals, least total goals if you go and watch Newcastle this year.
You're excited for goals, basically, is what I'm hearing.
But not if I'm watching Newcastle this year.
Also that. All right, well, that's Newcastle, so shall we move on to my club?
Yeah.
Or my next club, rather, would be Southampton.
All right.
I predicted for Southampton last year. I said that Nathan Redmond would score more than Charlie Austin because Redmond was more capable of like moving wide but still contributing to the attack. I was wrong.
Oh.
But only one. Austin had 9 goals. Redmond had 8. But still wrong. Yeah. But it means that Charlie Austin is still very much involved in Southampton, at least for now. But we shall see what happens because there's a new man in charge, Dale Grove.
Oh, yeah.
Mauricio Pellegrino, who I think a lot of people...
It's not who you think it is, right?
It is not. It is not a combination of Mauricio Pochettino and Manuel Pellegrini. But I think a lot of people... So second new manager in as many seasons. And I think a lot of people, because it's Southampton and because maybe he sounds like Pochettino, they have this idea of like, oh, it's going to be this kind of free-flowing, exciting...
You mean sounds as in just his name sounds the same?
Yeah. I just think it's like, oh, okay, they've gone for the same kind of guy. Yeah, it makes sense. And in some ways they have. But I think he is going to be... For Southampton fans who miss Pochettino, who miss Ronald Koeman, who are kind of frustrated by what Claude Puel was doing last season, I'm not going to say it's going to be as bad, but basically they've got like Diego Simeone on a budget is essentially how I would characterize Mauricio Pellegrino. Which is to say that, yes, sometimes they're very exciting, they're very high-pressing, high-intensity, high-energy. Sometimes they sit back and play like anti-football, if you want to go that route. And it basically speaks to his ability to get his players to change in-game, that they can change formation, they can change their approach.
How do you know so much about this guy?
Because I read all about what is he like, because I saw there's a lot of debate, essentially, between fans saying, oh, he's going to be so exciting, it's going to be free-flowing, and then the responses of like, they're going to be a little bit more dour than you might expect.
Who did he manage last season?
He managed, I believe it was Alaves in La Liga. And I think got them to like the Copa del Rey final, or maybe the semi-final, got them to like 10th in the league, I want to say.
But that's kind of a battling, tactical, Simeone-type performance to get them that far, right?
And I think also ties in, I believe they're a Basque club, so then obviously they have the Basque policy, so they've got limited players. And so I think, again, that fits in with what Southampton go for, youth players on a kind of a bargain bin players that then they can make fit into a system. So I think that's why he will fit there.
Okay.
So I don't mean to say that like Southampton fans should be bummed. I think he's going to be a good manager. I just think it's not going to be like, oh man, we're scoring like 5 goals a game. This is super awesome.
So what was the prediction?
I have not made my prediction yet, but I will say, with all of that said, I'm going to move away from goals, and I'm going to say Jack Stevens, a man who we have not talked about yet, will be the next Saints player to get a big money move. Probably to Liverpool if Virgil van Dijk doesn't end up going there.
Jack Stevens.
So he is the man who filled in when Jose Font left to go to West Ham last season and really looked good. He like locked it down. He has that starting center back gig to the extent that there's a decent chance that even if Virgil van Dijk stays, Stevens will be playing alongside him as opposed to any other candidate.
Did you do your preview before the Van Dijk news came out today?
Yes, and then also afterwards. Like, I kind of started and then saw that news. And it doesn't really change much because I think no matter what, he's gone. I think he's
just for listeners, the news is that Virgil van Dijk put in a transfer request, made it official that he wants to leave, and said that he was insulted by some recent treatment that he received.
Yeah, I think he's training either by himself or with the youth team. That sometimes happens. I think they're basically waiting, they being Southampton, are waiting for anybody to give them a decent offer that isn't Liverpool. Because I think they really, really, really don't want to concede.
Yeah.
They're the other... So that's, I think Jack Stevens is basically going to step into that role. He'll be the one that they'll kind of look to anchor the defense, organize the defense. The other thing I wanted to note, another rumor that I saw, admittedly, I think from a day ago, and I haven't heard anything since, Mario Lemina, who we were both excited about.
Yeah, Juve.
Yes. He has reportedly already basically undergone his medical. But I haven't seen anything about him signing, so it's kind of an if-then. But I'm going to go, if Mario Lemina actually comes to Southampton, he will be one of the buys of the season. Like, he'll be in one of those lists because...
One of those lists. Oh, yes. When people say best buys of the Premier League season, yeah.
So Sky Sports reported £16 million was the fee for the 23-year-old. Could rise to 20.
That seems like a bargain.
Yeah, it absolutely seems like a bargain for a guy that we were both very excited about when we did our Africa Players draft. I think for like a youngster, and I think he's going to come in, he'll probably, if he does come, play alongside Oriol Romeu in the middle, and it's a very like exciting, young, clever, intelligent team, like midfield tandem that I think will really, really help Southampton continue to improve upon last season.
Okay, so I'm kind of excited for Southampton now.
Yeah, I think it's basically they've just got like a lot of potentially exciting players, and I think they've got the manager who can mold them into something.
So they'll be like the squint Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, sure.
If you squint hard enough, they look like Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, I like that one.
Maybe Pellegrino should buy some dark suits and all that. Really get it going.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then dark suits with a dark shirt underneath. Basically Johnny Cash. Buy the Johnny Cash wardrobe, you'll be fine.
Okay, I am previewing Stoke City. Stoke City, I think people might think that things are going wrong for them because Arnautovic went to West Ham, and that was kind of a high-profile thing. But I kind of like their moves in the transfer market. So they lost Arnautovic, who I love as a flair player, but I think kind of was not always delivering for Stoke. If you listen to Stoke fans, it was kind of like many weeks of being frustrated because he didn't do the amazing things that he sometimes did, right? Like bargain basement Zlatan, kind of. Walters has gone, so no more missed penalties. And Glenn Whelan has gone. In comes Darren Fletcher, who I think, as I understand it, West Brom fans were very impressed with him last season until his legs kind of gave out on him. So if they can get him not playing every game but playing many games, he's still a very useful midfielder in terms of discipline, really reliable passer. You know, he can really lead a team from midfield. Bojan Krkic is coming back. And then people forget Xherdan Shaqiri plays for Stoke City. And I've also got this whole theory that people forget, they're like Dre, people forget about Stoke. Because Stoke are always like mid-table, never challenging for the Champions League, never flirting with religation.
Do you know do you know they finished last season?
13th.
Okay.
But before that, they finished 9th,
9th.
Yeah.
I listened to the preview show. I know these things.
Oh, the one that we did.
Yeah.
See, one of my predictions is that they'll crack the top 10 again this season. That's not my big prediction. My big prediction is based on probably the best bit of business they did, which is to bring in Kurt Zouma on loan from Chelsea. I think when Chelsea let it be known that Kurt Zouma was available for a season-long loan, there was a long line out the door. Stoke City were either at the head of that line or put in the best sort of offer. So I think, and this is kind of you persuading me that this was the best thing for Kurt Zouma, I think he'll make the France World Cup 2018 squad.
Yes, I think.
Because if he's a Chelsea reserve, there's a good chance he doesn't. If he's absolutely lighting it up for Stoke City week in, week out in the Premier League, there's a much better chance that he does.
Yeah, I think, and that's the key point there, is that if he's lighting it up in the Premier League, because as I recall, he was basically 90% done deal moving to Spain, I think it was. Might have been, I don't think it was France, I think it was to Spain.
To La Liga somewhere?
And he essentially rejected it, basically. It was no, I want to stay and challenge myself in the Premier League. So I think that Stoke were able to maybe turn Chelsea's head a little bit. It speaks to probably how much they're willing to pay in terms of his wages, but also how much they wanted him and kind of how they thought.
I don't think Chelsea worried about money.
Yeah, probably not. But I think it speaks to Stoke City basically saying, this is our guy. We're very excited to get him. And I think that will maybe reflect in the confidence he has, the performances he gives, and thus his inclusion in that French squad.
So in pre-season, here's what Stoke have been doing. 3 at the back.
No.
And
Get out of here, really?
And the back three is Kurt Zouma, Jeff Cameron, and Ryan Shawcross.
That'll work.
That's a good back three, and Jeff Cameron's in it. I'm really excited. Jeff Cameron, by the way, it's his 5th season in the Premier League this year. He's a Premier League veteran.
And interestingly, we were really worried about him when we did this show last year. That we were really concerned about. I think Joe Allen, Joe Pirlo had just come in.
Yeah.
We were worried about some other midfield additions. We thought there's reinforced in the center of defense. They've reinforced in midfield. Maybe Jeff Cameron doesn't get as many minutes, and here he is. I expect to see him there. I expect him to be starting. I think he's proven himself to Mark Hughes, and that's always a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's the other thing. Today, the day we recorded this show, which is, Monday, Stoke City made a big announcement that they've signed Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting from Schalke.
Oh, of course.
So I do not know anything about this guy other than
this.
he's German-Cameroonian, has played for the Cameroonian national team. Stoke, so I'm basing this only on Stoke's Twitter account seemed very excited by it. There was multiple tweets about this guy joining.
That's your bar?
And they promised more coverage of the signing tomorrow. I haven't had time to really figure out exactly who he is, except that he's he's one of those guys that can play in a front three. Looks like he can be a winger either side or a forward. So they're obviously planning to go. I'm taking that as a sign that they're planning to go with that front three. But I couldn't tell you if he's great or not. Just that Stoke's Twitter account thinks he's great.
Gotcha. I love, though, that, in my mind, that indicates that you would expect that, if Stoke weren't pumped about it, that they'd be like, we signed this guy.
Sad face. Sad face emoji.
I'm not sure that's how it would work, but I could be wrong. I am not a front office executive.
One final guy to keep an eye on. I think this is a really interesting story. Do you remember Saido Berahino?
I do indeed.
So Saido Berahino...
More on him in just a moment.
Okay. So he lit it up for West Brom. In his early years. Then he was missing, weirdly missing for a while, and no one quite knew what was going on. Then he was signed by Stoke in January. Did not do well in the half season.
I'm aware.
He scored 0 goals in 13 games. And it came out that during the back end of his time at West Brom, he was actually banned for recreational drug use that the FA hadn't let us know about. At the time. So this season for Saido Berahino, he's now 24, he just got engaged. That's kind of that time of life where you either get mature or you don't. This is the year where we see if Berahino has grown into a man or not.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and include this here because last year I did the prediction for West Brom, and my prediction was that Saido Berahino will score more goals for another club than he would for West Brom because he was still there at the time. Moved to Stoke in January, 4 appearances for West Brom, no goals, 13 for Stoke, no goals. So I don't get that goals. One, and I'm still kind of frustrated about it.
So my other prediction for this season is that Berahino will score more goals this season than last season.
All right.
But also, I honestly think the way narratives tend to work is that he will score against West Brom at some point.
All right. One quick question about Stoke. Last season, your prediction was around Joe Allen. You were very excited about him, I think, coming out of the Euros. We both were.
Yeah, of course,
What do you expect from him this year? Is he still going to be heavily involved? Has he moved on and I just
No, he's still at Stoke City. He was the starting lineup I looked at recently. They beat RB Leipzig in pre-season. Joe Allen was in there.
All right.
Yeah, so look out for maybe a Joe Allen, Darren Fletcher midfield. That's a sort of a British, experienced, short-passing midfield.
Alrighty. Yeah. Well, there we go. So that's 5 clubs down, 15 clubs total, 5 to go. But
Good
first, we've got a sponsor for today, Dale Grove.
It's a returning sponsor.
It is.
X1 Fuel.
They're back.
X1 Fuel is a pre- and post-workout formula for athletes who expect more from their workouts and their on-field performance.
That's right. No chemical ingredients, no fillers, no excess sugars, just superfoods like acai berries. It's been a while, but I still pronounced it right. Goji, maki berries, as well as pomegranates, flaxseed, pea starch, all good stuff in there to get you energized, to get you going. And
I want to reiterate something we said when we first started the X1 Fuel campaign. We would not do these sort of workout formulas if it wasn't good stuff. You know what I'm saying? If it was full of weird chemicals and loads of caffeine and makes your eyes bulge, we would not do it if it wasn't safe and healthy. X1 Fuel, because of the ingredients, we are happy to promote it.
And because I enjoyed it. I'll speak for me at this point.
Yeah.
I used it. I liked it. My wife used it. She liked it. She's kind of bummed that we're out of it.
I haven't had a chance to use it because you took it home. You took it home from the office and didn't bring it back.
I believe, to be fair, that coincided with when you went to England.
Oh, okay.
So well, you're not going to be here. I may as well use it. And then I definitely used it.
Well, the cat's away.
Yes. The cat's away. I'll get amped up on protein. But to the extent that I think we may end up ordering some ourselves because we both liked it. We both thought it helped us go on the morning walk jogs with the dogs.
Okay.
Depending on if it's 105 degrees in Richmond, as it sometimes is.
There's no formula for that.
Yeah, no.
Sunscreen, I guess, is the formula for that.
Basically.
So, one of the things we thought we would do is which player in the Premier League this year would benefit from some pre- and post work out. So the pre gives you sort of the focus and a little bit of extra energy. The post helps you sort of come down slowly in terms of like what goes into your body in terms of carbohydrates, so that you don't sort of crash afterwards. Which player do you think would benefit the most from an X1 Fuel subscription?
I mentioned him very briefly when I was doing the Man United preview, but I'm going to say Ander Herrera because I think he will be one of the regular starters for United this season. But we've talked about this in episodes before. United are big. So you always got the two big center backs.
Oh, I see.
Then you've got like Matic as your holder. He's a holding midfielder. He's over 6 foot. Paul Pogba over 6 foot, like 6'3", I think. Lukaku 6'3" or 6'4". So you've got a Fellaini, obviously a big dude. You've got a lot of height in there. Ander Herrera, not a big guy. So he's going to need that like extra energy, that extra bit of intensity.
It's not a growth formula.
I know, but like you got to make up for it somehow, right? So if you can't be big, then you're going to be intense, and it's going to make him focused, like super energetic. But then obviously at the end of a game, he's got to calm down. He's got to calm down.
Or he could stand on the tub.
That works too, yeah. Either way.
Because it is a pretty big tub
Double
when you buy it.
solution, yes, on corner kicks. The tub.
For the preseason photo, he can stand on the tub.
What about you? Who do you think could benefit from some X1?
Saido Berahino. I think he needs to learn about a natural high.
You wrote that one out, didn't you?
No, well, I thought of it earlier, but yes.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
And honestly, to give him a bit more focus, because he is way more capable than what happened last season.
There we are. Well, if any of those players wanted to go for some X1, they can save 30% off when they purchase the Performance Bundle membership that includes both products, the pre- and post-workout formula, plus the shaker bottle, the X1 Dry Fit t-shirt, and the on-the-go packs for busy athletes.
You can also save $10 if you use the discount code TOTALSOCCER. That's all one word, all uppercase, TOTALSOCCER at checkout. So it's x1fuel.com. Use TOTALSOCCER at checkout. You'll get $10 off, even after that 30% off for the Performance Bundle. Do it, Saido Berahino. Do it.
And if he wants to, he can find a link to that product in the show notes.
Yes.
And with that said, thank you to X1 for sponsoring today's show. Let's get back to some previewing, shall we?
Let's go to Wales.
Let's go to Wales. It's Swansea City time. You had Swansea last year. You said they would lead the league in headed goals by Spanish strikers. We get it as like the later we go into the predictions, the more sort of strange your predictions get. Because then it occurred to me only afterwards that there were not that many Spanish strikers in the Premier League. So I think you might get this point, because I couldn't really find...
Because they had two. They had Llorente and I think Borja. They had two big Spanish strikers.
Emphasis on had. And all I can say is that they had the third most headed goals in all of the Premier League.
Did they really?
Yes, they did. Arsenal were number one with like 24. And it is worth noting that Fernando Llorente scored 15 goals last season.
Did he?
So you got to imagine that a lot of those were with his head.
I did happen to notice that 6 of those were from Gylfi Sigurdsson. Sigurdsson to Llorente was as productive as Christian Eriksen to Harry Kane.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll talk about him in a moment. I'll just add, Diego Costa did get 20 goals, but I'm inclined to believe that maybe a lot of those weren't with his head. So I'm going to say Fernando Llorente probably had the most.
Plus he's Brazilian.
Yeah, well, national team, whatever. If I say David Wagner's American, I got to say Diego Costa's Spanish. Yes, so let's talk about Mr. Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yeah.
Still a Swansea player at time of recording.
Really?
Yes.
That's surprising. I thought by the time we recorded this, he would have gone to Everton.
You would think so. That move has not yet gone through. I think it probably will.
Yeah.
But I loved a Redditor. I saw this comment, which I thought would sum up this season pretty well. Everyone thinks we'll go down if we sell Siggy. It was Ashley Williams last year, Wilfred Boney the year before, and Michu as well.
You nearly did. Is part of that.
Well, yeah, that's more, I would say, about the managers, and that's what I want to focus on. Because it is obviously Paul Clement came in, righted the ship as much as he could, and now is obviously going to get a full year in charge, has had a full preseason.
Yep.
I did want to mention the man you mentioned earlier, Tammy Abraham.
Yeah.
He's probably going to deputize because Llorente...
He's the new Llorente.
Well, he will have to be because Llorente is injured to start the season, so it seems like Abraham will deputize in that regard. The other one to note is Roque Mesa, who's coming from Las Palmas. He's going to be probably the defensive midfielder in kind of a 4-4-2 diamond.
He sounds delicious. He sounds like...
And the idea, I think, Roque Mesa?
Yeah, he sounds like Greek tapas.
I could see that. I could order up some Roque Mesa with a little Pete on the side. He's going to be the one to kind of link up the defense to attack transition. They're going to try to play a little bit more passing ball as opposed to hoofing it long and hoping.
All right, good luck with that.
But the man I want to talk about is in the defense.
Okay.
I'm going to go with another center back with a prediction here. I'm going to say that Alfie Mawson will get his first call up to the senior national team, and maybe more. I think there's a chance that this man might maybe go to the World Cup.
So, view behind the curtain, you teased this earlier, right? You told me one of my predictions will be an England centre-back getting his first England call-up, and I guessed at a couple, and I wasn't correct. That was going to be my third guess, but then I thought I'd just leave it for the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a 23-year-old, if you don't know who he is. He came from Barnsley last season, struggled because...
He did, because I remember paying close attention to him when we were really watching all those Bob Bradley Swansea games, and Alfie Mawson, along with all the other centre-backs, there was like at least one mistake per centre-back every game for a month.
And I'm going to kind of excuse most of what happened from most of the players in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Because you had two different managers trying to do two different things, not getting a lot of instructions or maybe getting too many instructions at times. In the second half of the season under Paul Clement, he was rock solid. And I think he's really going to be like the dependable center back now for Swansea. And so you've got this young Englishman I think is going to start regularly, if not every single game.
The future is bright for English centre backs.
This actually, reading about him is when I texted you. Between him and Jack Stevens, that's when I texted you. Things seem like they're kind of bright for England, maybe
Michael
heading
Keane.
into that World Cup.
Yeah, there's some good young players.
At the aforementioned John Stones. Yeah, so I just think the other thing that's interesting to me is you mentioned the other Spanish striker, Borja Bastón. He is gone. He's on loan to Malaga. Jordi Amat is gone. Bafétimbi Gomez is gone. So it just seems
Jordi Amat was bad.
Yeah, so it just seems like they've gotten rid of some of those players who were there and could be good, but could be inconsistent. You never really knew. So it seems like this is much more Paul Clement's team. It's going to be a possession-based, kind of practical team, and I think they're going to be the better for it.
They came and you saw them play against Richmond Kickers in pre-season, right? Did they win 2-1?
I believe so, and I believe that Tammy Abraham was far and away the best player on the field.
Is that right? Tammy Abraham's good. Yeah, I'm excited about Tammy Abraham as an England fan.
Yes. Jordan Ayew, also pretty good. He was in there as well.
I'm not excited about him as an England fan.
Yeah, that's fair. So then I think it will... Really, I think they're going to be safe in terms of the relegation battle, but I think where they are in the table will heavily depend on who their attacking midfielder is. If it's Gylfi Sigurdsson, obviously they will be higher up than if it's not.
So, okay, to go back to the original question, are they in trouble if Gylfi Sigurdsson goes?
I mean, I think they are in trouble in the sense that they're losing their best player. I think that they are probably preparing for it as we speak. I think they've probably been preparing for it for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that Paul Clement isn't still basing his entire game plan around Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yeah. So he's not going to do a double take when Sigurdsson leaves.
I would hope not.
We saw that coming.
I would hope not, but I think it's definitely going to take some time to adjust and try to figure it out because you can't really replace him right away unless there's like a swap deal for Ross Barkley and he comes in and plays as a number 10.
That's
you never
not
know.
Impossible.
Yeah. But so I think it will definitely take some getting used to, but I think they will be okay overall.
Okay. Actually, I hope that happens, and I hope Ross Barkley starts every week for Swansea, because that would be exciting to watch, right?
There you go.
I'm previewing Spurs.
You are?
Yeah, Tottenham Hotspur. Do you remember when we did our transfer show, I talked a lot about how I loved that they were not spending big money.
Yep.
I love that they were sort of, okay, these are our guys. We're gonna promote some youth players and go with what we've got. And I'm not going to be drawn into the everybody smoking peer pressure. I'm not going to be drawn into buying loads of players just because it feels like you have to buy loads of players. For the start of the season, the squad looks pretty thin.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's looking right now like the starting right back could well be Kyle Walker-Peters.
Should we do that scouting report right now? Because it's pretty much going to inform what you're about to say.
Yeah.
I'll jump to it. There he is. From Marcus McCarthy, scouting Kyle Walker-Peters, the 20-year-old English defender for Tottenham. A full-strength Tottenham took on Juventus in Spurs' final preseason match. Kieran Trippier started at right back, but was subbed out due to injury in the 41st minute. Poch immediately introduced Kyle Walker-Peters, and the youngster didn't miss a beat, particularly in 1v1 defensive situations. After the match, Trippier was in a walking boot, so it looks like Walter Peters might see his first Premier League start much sooner than anticipated.
So there you go. Kyle Walker-Peters could start the season at right back for Spurs. Danny Rose also injured.
Yep.
So second choice left back Ben Davies will probably start the season for Spurs. Things are already looking a little bit thin.
Yeah.
But they still have Christian Eriksen.
They do.
And he is still a bona fide genius. He's not the Messiah. He is an absolute genius. I'm a huge fan of Christian Eriksen. I think he will lead the Premier League in assists next season.
Okay. Do you know how many he had last season or who led the Premier League?
He had 15 assists last season, which made him second place behind Kevin De Bruyne, who had 18.
Okay.
I think Eriksen will up his game and get more than anyone else this coming season.
I'm debating whether or not I want to Romelu Lukaku you here. Like, well, if you're going to do that, you got to go like at least 20 assists.
Well,
no, we'll just say he's going to get the most assists.
The more interesting thing is why.
Okay.
So the reason I think he gets
rather than me just being a stickler for numbers, there's an actual explanation here.
All right, fine. The reason he's so great at it is his ability ability to pick out a pass. I think he did lead the league in key passes last season. I think it was 3 point something per game. So he is wonderful from sort of any position, like a central position or out wide. He seems able to slip balls in or curl balls in. He'll bend them or he'll slip them for Dele Alli or Harry Kane to get on the end of. That is a really productive relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember Gab Marcotti singing his praises like week in, week out.
Yeah, and I almost feel like he should be, Spurs fans won't like this, he should be talked about more when Barcelona and Real Madrid are looking for players.
I think there were rumors today linking him with Barcelona.
He would be perfect for that left side of the attack.
Linking everyone with Barcelona, so, grain of salt.
He would do great at Barcelona. Okay, but Spurs fans will
Spurs fans like, shh.
Yeah, just...
Phone's off the hook.
Yeah.
Fax machine's ripped out of the wall.
So the other big thing with Tottenham is they are moving to Wembley. Do you know about this? So White Hart Lane is closed down. I think it's been ripped to pieces at this point. And they're building the new Spurs Stadium, which I think is still called White Hart Lane, maybe, unless a sponsor comes in.
Whiter Harder Lane.
Whiter Harder Lane. In the meantime, they're going to play next season at Wembley. This is a problem.
Are we gonna? I just want to do the carbon copy of what you said about West Ham last year. So we'll wait and see what happens here.
I'm a big believer in going to a new stadium is a problem. You always see teams struggle the year they move to a new stadium, right? Yeah. And with Spurs, remember me asking you this? I don't know if I told you why I was asking you this. Like, do you think it's harder to press on a bigger field?
Yeah, and the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, because there's more ground to cover, right? So,
but it's okay because Tottenham have that super deep squad, so they'll just be able to rotate players.
So I'm coming back around to Christian Eriksen, trust me. White Hart Lane was the second smallest field in the Premier League last season. It's 100 metres by 67 metres. It's actually smaller than what the Premier League want the minimum dimensions to be, but it was kind of grandfathered in because it was impossible to widen White Hart Lane. That's how old that stadium was.
Just make it curved. It's
fine. Wembley will be the biggest at 105 metres by 69 metres. So they are, they've even asked if they can shorten it. They were told no. They wanted to match it to White Hart Lane. Premier League said no because we have these new sort of specific dimensions.
And I know that does. I just want to add. I know that doesn't sound like that much of a difference.
It is, because when you multiply it into square feet, you get into like an extra 1,000 or so. Sorry, square meters.
Yeah,
you get about an extra 1,000 or so.
And and it's just like I can't really explain it other than just that the difference. If you see one field and you see a field that's 5 or 10 yards wider, you will spot that and be like, oh boy, we got more distance to cover here.
Yep, because it's not just that it's longer by 5 meters. It's like when you add in all the dimensions, it's suddenly all kinds of space.
And there is an argument for muscle memory as well, that if you're playing on the same field
definitely.
And if you're the right winger crossing that ball in, you know exactly how to hit it, you know exactly where to aim, you know exactly where to put that ball. You probably even have sort of like in the background, you've got sort of things to go off of. You got your North Star that you can kind of aim for.
I genuinely believe that. And I think there's a familiarity, apart from the field dimensions and the stadium, I think there's a familiarity with the dressing room, there's a familiarity with the fans, and like everything just feels at home, which you don't when you go to Wembley, right? So I actually think Spurs will have a rough start to the season because they have thin squad, a lot of injuries, and a new stadium, right? So it's going to be a rough start to the season. But the flip side of this is I think they'll slowly figure it out because I think it's a really high-quality squad. I also think the bigger field dimensions will prevent teams from bunkering effectively against Tottenham Hotspur. Because when Pochettino first joined Spurs, he complained that teams bunkered too easily at White Hart Lane because it's a small space. You can compact all your defenders back in there. Really hard to break down. So even though it's going to be harder to press, it's also going to be easier to open teams up with Christian Eriksen's passes because there'll be more space for him to slip those balls in to Dele Alli and Harry Kane.
Unless they stay compact and back, basically, right? Unless they just put everybody like inside the 18-yard box.
Well, maybe, but then there's more space on the wings. Right? So there is more space to attack into if a team tries to bunker. So it's pros and cons. So I think Spurs will figure it out. I think it will take a while, but I think Christian Eriksen will end up with an awful lot of assists.
May I ask you another Spurs question? Or do you have other points to get to first?
No, I'm all done.
So my prediction last year was that Cameron Carter-Vickers would get both his Premier League and Champions League debuts.
No and no.
No and no. He did get his first team debuts in the FA Cup and the League Cup. So I'm wondering, with the kind of squad depth they have, do you envision Cameron Carter-Vickers getting more minutes this season?
Everything I've heard is that his pre-season was a miniature nightmare.
Oh boy.
Like it was a suggestion that maybe he's not quite ready. So I would say no. I would say even like injuries to fullbacks are not going to get him starting a Premier League game when he's not quite ready.
Yeah, at least not right away. At least like maybe in January. Yeah. Or maybe they signed some people in January.
There were rumours, I'm sorry I didn't write his name down, but there were rumours of Spurs being linked with a Portuguese right back. So there may be a signing coming in at right back, which doesn't directly affect Cameron Carter-Vickers. But, they may strengthen the squad a little bit.
All right. All right, so that's Tottenham, which moves us on to Watford. I have to note, last year you predicted that Walter Mazzarri would start in a 3-5-2. He would change it before the new year because it wasn't working. He changed it in late January. I went through and looked at all the games, and he started to change it around December, but it would be one game in a 4-4-2, and the next 4 would be in a 3-5-2.
So don't get the point?
You do not. And then in late January is when he really did kind of switch to 70% 4-4-2. Which
I'm taking honor points for that, though.
That's fine. So at least Watford fans can be optimistic about the fact that Walter Mazzarri is not there anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm a little, in the way that you have some concerns about Newcastle, I have some concerns about Watford.
Okay.
And so my prediction is that they will be bottom of the table on November 1st.
Wow.
I'm not saying that they are going to stay there. I'm not necessarily saying that they will get relegated, but I think there are reasons to be a little bit concerned about Watford. Starting with, they've gotten rid of Mazzarri, as I said. They've brought in Marco, the prettiest manager in the Premier League, Silva. He's a handsome man. They've also done smart business. They've brought in Tom Cleverley on a permanent deal as opposed to loan. They got Will Hughes from Derby. He's a very highly rated prospect.
Yes, he's in the Scout Network.
Yeah, Nathaniel Chalobah as well in the scouting network.
Is he another Chelsea player that got sent out?
Yes, but I think now it is a permanent deal, £5.7 million. One that you maybe haven't heard of, because why would you, is Kiko Femenia. He came from that Alaves team that I mentioned earlier, so he's another kind of can transition into different positions and different roles. So I think they've made smart purchases. The problem is that basically they've got 29 players on the roster. Silva says he wants 5 more. So that's 34 people. That's
too many. Isn't there someone... Is it Arsenal have 33 and Wenger saying we need to get rid of some?
Yeah, it's basically that, I think a month ago, Silva said we need 5 more signings. And then they haven't made any signings since then. And I think part of it is that they've just got a ton of players.
Yeah.
And an element of that is that they've got a ton of midfielders and not a lot else. They've got certainly Troy Deeney is still there, but he's going to be their starting striker. It's a lot of this guy might be the starting center back and this guy might be the starting left back, but it might be him. So there's just a lot of uncertainty at a time when it seems like Silva, the way I heard it characterized is he wants to do tiki-taka on a budget. So he wants to do this sort of
where the passes almost connect?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's basically so he wants to do that sort of possession-based, keeping the ball, moving it around. And if you've got all of these players in there, you don't really know who's going to get the consistent minutes. You don't know who's going to go out. And it's going to take some time for these players to get used to that.
Yeah.
And then you look at how they start the season. Through October, their first 9 games, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea. Then
that's their first 4 games?
Yes. But it's okay. They play Swansea, Southampton, West Brom, Bournemouth, which are more winnable matches, except that all of those are away. So their only winnable quote-unquote home match is against Brighton 3 games into the season. Outside of that, all their games are on the road or against big clubs.
Yeah.
So I just see really, really tough opening schedule. Players still trying to learn what exactly they're doing in a different system than they've played before. New manager, I could see it being really rough for them in the first couple months, but then I could also see them really gelling and getting out of that spot.
So all this makes sense as you say it, but it's also going to be really funny if they have a flying start to the season.
I mean, that's also a possibility because I think that Silva's going to be a good manager, but then a lot of people have pointed out he's being kind of heralded as this messiah of he's going to come in, he's this very talented, very strong manager, and it's but I mean, the Hull still got relegated. Came in very late. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of pundits out there are sort of confused as to why he's getting all of these accolades when maybe it's not quite earned yet. Now, again, I still think he will. He's a very young guy, very handsome guy, Colin Farrell-esque, I would say.
Points for handsomeness.
Yeah, well, maybe there should
Otherwise,
be.
our Sunday team would be top of the league.
True. Yeah, so maybe they will get off to a flying start. Everybody will buy into the system, and it will be great. But maybe it will take some time, and they'll get hammered by very good teams and teams on the road.
So what's your actual prediction then?
Is that they will be bottom of the table on November 1st. Boom. That's it.
Nice.
They might not get relegated. They might get relegated, but I'm saying bottom of the table November 1st.
I love this because we'll be able to check it on November 1st.
That's the plan.
I'll be calling you. Okay, for West Bromwich Albion, West Brom, here's my prediction, and I'll explain why afterwards. Their new centre-back signing, Ahmed Hegazi, on loan from Al Ahly. He's known as the Nesta of the Pyramids, which, first of all, makes me love him.
That's a great name.
It's a great name to have, right?
It's better than Joe Pirlo.
This season, for West Brom, he'll have his highest goal-scoring season of all time. And here's why. So he's only ever scored 1 goal per season before. All right. No, but there's reasoning behind it. He scored 1 goal for Fiorentina when he was there early on. He scored a goal in each of his last 2 Al Ahly seasons. Centre-backs score an awful lot of goals for West Bromwich Albion.
That they do.
Because they are managed by the baseball cap man himself, Tony Pulis. They scored, I think, the second most goals from set pieces in the entire Premier League last year. Chelsea scored the most because they were champions. West Brom scored the second most. Their top scorer was Salman Rondon, big guy with 8 goals.
Not Saido Berahino.
No. Okay. Second top scorer was Gareth McCauley with 6 goals. Okay. Centre-back Gareth McCauley. Craig Dawson, another defender, got 4. Johnny Evans got 2. So basically,
West Brom.
If you're a centre-back playing for West Brom, you are going to be sort of drilled in practice about sort of how to get on the end of corner kicks. Ahmed Hegazi is 6'5". He is going to be the target when he's in there. I will bet he'll score at least 3 or 4 goals this season. It will be, stats-wise, a career year for Ahmed Hegazi. And then maybe some other team will sign him and expect the same return. And they'll be like, doesn't seem to work as well when he's not playing for a Tony Pulis team.
So you're going to say more goals than he's ever scored, or are you going to go with like 3 goals at least?
Yeah, should we make it interesting and say more goals than he's scored in his entire career? So 3 goals is his entire career total so far. He'll score at least 4 this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a bold prediction, Mr. Grove.
Well, I mean, it's okay.
All right. No, this is life or death, man. Did I not mention that? Whoever gets more at the end of the season, they get to live.
So this isn't a prediction.
2 men enter, make predictions, wait for like 10 months, and then one of them exits. That's how it works.
Here's a fascinating stat I found about West Brom from last season. I don't even have a prediction. I just want to share it. They had the second most yellow cards of any team in the Premier League with 80 and 0 red cards. And apparently they do a thing. This is a West Brom fan I saw explaining this. Tony Pulis lets his players get out there, get rough, get yellow cards, but then manages it. Like he regularly substitutes players out after they've got a yellow.
Okay, that makes sense. I was going to say, is he like, hey, calm it down.
No.
You're on a yellow. You're on a yellow.
He's a big believer in like roughing up the opposition, but also having 11 men on the field. You know what I'm saying? So he kind of manages it in that way that keeps it steady. It's a very, very kind of clever way to do it.
That is a stat that, like, if you saw it elsewhere, you'd be like, something is fishy.
Yeah, something's weird, right?
Someone's paid someone something.
It's just that West Brom have paid Tony Pulis money to manage that. So, and the way they'll do this as well to get to the back to the sort of scoring off set pieces thing is, remember Salman Rondon, right? He's not running in behind defences. He is receiving long balls. West Brom, by the way, played the fewest short passes per game of any team in the Premier League last year. He's receiving some long balls. He's holding them up. And he's winning free kicks, right? He just hold it up, wait to get fouled, then they have a free kick. Then West Brom can cross it in and get all their big guys in there and have sort of these well-executed set pieces and score off of those.
All right.
That's the West Brom plan, and it's going to work for Ahmed Hegazi.
And should there be like any sort of pause for concern if you're a West Brom fan about
cause for concern?
Yeah, I always say pause. It's just what I do now. It's the way it's going to be. Should there be any pause for concern about the departure of Darren Fletcher?
I think I mentioned this earlier. The thing was people were impressed and then frustrated because he kind of seemed to slow down. But at the same time, the whole team slowed down. There's definitely a thing of like once they got to like 42 points, which secures you not getting relegated, more or less, they kind of relaxed at that point.
So no pause cause for concern then?
No pause of cause for concern that I've heard.
Okay. All right. Well, that moves us right along to my final prediction, I do believe.
Who you got?
And the final one of the evening. West Ham United, good sir.
All right.
Yep. Go to your prediction from last year. You were very concerned about West Ham.
No Payet, new stadium. Bad deal.
They still had Payet at that point.
Oh, wow.
Payet didn't move till January, lest you forget.
But was he saying I want out?
Not yet, I don't think. The bigger concern, at least at the time, you were worried about the Olympic Stadium move. You were worried about like the negative impact, and then you were, I think, a little bit worried about how everybody really at the time was like, oh, West Ham top 5, maybe top 4, definitely top 6. So your prediction was West Ham fans would be disappointed by the 2017 season. I think that's safe to say you were right. Because, I think they would not take a duplicate of that one. But I don't think they will have to because I think things are looking better for West Ham.
Oh, I'm cycling through their signings in my head. I won't spoil it, but I've just remembered who they signed. Yeah.
All right, yes. So let's look at who they signed then. Let's start there. Pablo Zabaleta on a free. Joe Hart, you might have heard of him. Marko Arnautovic, the aforementioned, and Javier Hernandez, Chicharito.
I forgot about that one. That's the best one.
It is. The only real, like only significant departures worth noting, Enner Valencia has gone to Liga MX, and Reece Oxford, whom we both love, has gone to Borussia Mönchengladbach on loan.
I forgot about that. That's an interesting move.
Yes.
Go on, Reece Oxford.
And then the other
a year abroad.
I know this is going to shock you, Dale Grove, but Andy Carroll is injured and missed the start of the season. So there's some...
I shouldn't even laugh. It's not funny at this point.
There's some speculation that when he comes back, it will be a Carroll-Chicharito combination up top. But for right now, I think they're probably
Big man, fast man.
Yep. And they're going to go the 4-2-3-1, Chicharito up top by himself, Arnautovic. And then it's crazy to look at West Ham right now because Arnautovic is there, as I said, Snodgrass is there, Lanzini, Mikel Antonio, Andre Ayew. They've got a ton of attacking talent. And then they've got, a decent holding midfielders. So I think that...
Mark Noble, is he still in business? I like
and Pedro Obiang, I believe, will be their starters there. So it just seems like they've kind of got a lot of better pieces and nobody who's going to really be agitating for a move.
Yeah.
They brought in the kind of veterans who have that Premier League experience. It feels like they've made kind of smarter acquisitions that will allow them to be a better Premier League team overall.
When you say veterans who have Premier League experience, that makes me think of like the signings that Championship teams make when they come up.
Yeah.
This is more like internationals who have all kinds of like World Cup experience, like Zabaleta and Joe Hart. Yeah.
Yeah, so... With all that said, I want to focus on Manuel Lanzini,
who
let's do that. I think is maybe their best player, which is a bold statement given some of the names that we just listed off. But he's their most creative player. I believe he led them in goals last season and maybe was like second on the team in assists, or it might be vice versa.
I know he was high on dribbles per game because I looked at that stat. He was in the top 10 for dribbles per game.
Yeah, and I think I think he was their leading goal scorer and like not on the assist chart, but that's why I'm making this prediction. I think he will double the number of assists provided by Dimitri Payet last season. Now, before you think that
it's
is
not many, is it?
No, it is actually. He had 6 before leaving.
Did he?
And to clarify, in his breakthrough season, he had 12 total assists.
Right.
So I'm going to say Lanzini will equal or double that. He'll have at least 12 assists.
Or more?
Yes, because I think he's going to be the central player. He'll be operating as that number 10. I think he'll still be in there in an attacking role, even if they do switch to a 4-4-2. But I think with the kind of attacking options, the more kind of stable attack that West Ham will have this season, I think he's going to get an even better statistical return.
All right, but he's not catching Christian Eriksen.
Probably not. I will add one more bonus prediction, which is that Joe Hart will play himself back into Daryl Grove's good graces.
He's never fully out. His England sort of job is not... He's officially still the England number 1 right now, but his last game he conceded 2 free kicks against Scotland, which is not exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, and so I texted you about this because I was wondering, is he still definitely the number 1, or are there other options in there? I think he probably maybe is, but I think he will cement that role more this season.
I mean, because if he had a bad start, or if he was on Man City's bench and then say Jordan Pickford is playing lights out for Everton, he's in trouble. But if he's playing regularly for West Ham and probably playing well, because he's still a very good keeper, right? Yeah. He's not a Guardiola keeper, but he's a very good keeper.
He's a very good keeper,
and I
think he's a very I mean this in the best possible way. He's a very good goalkeeper for West Ham. He's not...
I get what you're saying.
They're not going to ask him to, pass the ball with his feet and do a lot of, very loud... It's just good as, organize the defense, don't let goals in. And I think that's what he will do. He's got good defenders, veteran defenders in front of him. Angelo Ogbonna and Winston Reid are probably going to be your 2 starters. Jose Font coming off the bench, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, I think he's got the experience there. Pablo Zabaleta, he has the relationship for Man City.
Is there going to be a moment next year where, Zabaleta turns to pass the ball back to Joe Hart, and then we'd have to do that anymore. And he just turns and bangs it upfield.
To Andy Carroll's head? Yeah, I think that will probably happen at least once. Maybe that should have been my prediction. Maybe I'm taking that and it's mine now. Jeremy Jam style, prediction number 3.
I got jammed. Okay, are we done with our Self-jam. Are we done with our very specific predictions?
We are indeed. So just to recap, that was Manuel Lanzini will have at least 12 assists, and Daryl Grove will love Joe Hart all over again.
Okay, and we look forward to doing our Premier League coverage in the upcoming season. I think we've kind of figured something out, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to do a thing where we try and cover the whole weekend and watch.
Right.
The start of last season, we tried to cover the whole weekend, watch all the action, give reviews of all kinds of games, and it was just too much.
Well, I think part of it is that we had just gone to 5 days a week at that point. And we had this idea that that will give us so much more time to cover the Premier League. But the reality is, you don't want to hear about the Premier League results from Sunday on Wednesday. You want to hear about them on Monday.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't change anything. It was still sort of no, we still have to do all this stuff on the Monday show because tons of stuff happens over the weekend, and then it ends up being kind of an untenable situation.
So I think what we'll do is just kind of do the big talking points, which I guess is kind of what other podcasts do, but we'll bring our own unique spin on it, which is to put some effort into it.
Or we'll add our own talking points of we thought this was very important. Did
That's
you
true,
see this? We'll talk about that.
So we'll find some things that other people didn't see.
Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
In the Turkish sense.
Okay, Taylor, let's move on to the Scouting Network.
Let's do.
We've had lots of reports coming in. The Total Soccer Scouting Network is on fire right now. Someone yelled Dracarys and all the reports came in.
Oh, you tied it back together. Well done, buddy. Yeah, lots of reports.
It's not as smooth if you call it out after I do it.
All right, I won't reference it. Okay. But see, then everyone's like, oh, Taylor totally missed that reference.
You can't win.
It'd be difficult to miss that one.
Self-jam.
Yeah. We've mentioned some of these or little bits and pieces here and there, but now we're going to run through all of them. So let's start with Todd Ito scouting Takafusa Kubo, 16-year-old Japanese midfielder for FC Tokyo. Kubo has been linked with a move to Real Madrid, which is surprising given that he spent 4 years at La Masia.
Don't do it, Kubo. Don't do it, Kubo.
So he was forced out due to Barcelona's registration embargo and now can't sign for them until he's 18 years old. He can, however, sign with any other European club now that he's 16, so there's some speculation that maybe Madrid will hijack that deal.
All right, so Kubo's super talented, right? But Kubo does not need to go to Real Madrid or Barcelona or Manchester City or any gigantic team. Yeah. If Kubo should have a shot at a starting, I mean, not a starting team, but, a path to the first team in the near future, he should sign for, like, West Brom or something
and worth noting, I
live in the Midlands.
I believe I'm correct in saying that I don't think he even starts for FC Tokyo because he is so young. So maybe, like, establish yourself as a starter in the J-League, then see what happens.
Southampton. I think Southampton's a good place for kids to go.
J-League or Southampton, one or the other.
No, but you're right. Yeah, maybe establish yourself in your home country where you know people.
I just love that. I was like, the J-League, and you're like, Southampton. Like, totally.
It's all the same. Okay. John Adams, not that one, is scouting Cheyan.
I mean, if the Premier League gets their way, to be fair, it kind of will be, because eventually it will be like Southampton will be playing Man City in Tokyo.
Yes, within our lifetimes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hooray?
No.
Yeah.
Harrison, the 20-year-old English forward for Spurs. John says, the Tottenham U23s competed in a youth tournament in France this past week. They won all their games, as I would expect, as well as the final on penalties. More importantly, Cheyan scored in all 4 of the games, including against the PSG U23s. No word yet on if he stays with Spurs this season or goes out on loan. I did see Shane Harrison, I think, was voted or ranked as the number 7 Tottenham Hotspur prospect by Cartilage Free Captain, which is the SB Nation blog, which I really love because they pay a lot of attention to Spurs' sort of up-and-coming players who are mostly English. So it's got me really excited.
Spurs have like roughly 400 up-and-coming players. Number 7 is a big deal.
It's great. It's in the upper percentile.
Up next, Charles Speakerman scouting Georgi Mihailovic.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to say that's how it's pronounced because that's how Charles phonetically spelled it for us. Thank you for that. 18-year-old American attacker for the Chicago Fire. Jordi signed as a homegrown player for the Chicago Fire back in January and has started getting second-half minutes lately. He captained the MLS homegrown team against the Chivas U20s, played the full match, and scored in the first minute. He started the game as a forward but dropped into the center midfield as the match progressed to see it out.
That's an impressive story for one of our homegrown players.
Yeah, not bad.
Okay. Beth Jolly and Alex Barone are scouting Kylian Mbappe, the 18-year-old French striker, for Monaco for now. I haven't been caught up with the Mbappe news. This is kind of exciting for me. Beth and Alex say, Marca continue to report that a deal for Mbappe to join Madrid is already very much in the works and has been since mid-July. The stumbling block is that Zidane is still insisting that one of the BBC, specifically Gareth Bale, be sold before Mbappe signs. Bale would prefer to stay, but has reportedly accepted that his future might lie back in England. Man United and Chelsea are rumoured to be interested. If the Welshman goes, then Kylian is expected to sign for 6 seasons at a salary of €7 million per year.
So evidently this was a thing that Zidane stated to the Real Madrid board, like right around the Champions League final, that there were already some speculation about like who we're going to bring in, and basically he said, I don't want to like basically mess up this team by having 4 attacking options, and especially because we have all these young players coming through who have been performing well for the club. So if we suddenly have Mbappe and Bale and Benzema and Ronaldo, those guys don't get as many minutes. That doesn't make as much sense to me.
Can't Zidane just say like, let's sign Mbappe and then sell Gareth Bale? Why does it have to be in this order?
Maybe number one is because first of all, I doubt it's definitely him that's holding it up. But I would say number one, you don't have the guarantee that they will actually do that. They'll get rid of Gareth Bale. But there also might be...
He doesn't want to get jammed by Real Madrid.
And then the other element might just be that Madrid are trying to be smart here and they don't want to spend an insane amount of money on Kylian Mbappe because then, really, actually, this is what I'm going to say, is that if you do that, then you've publicly made it clear that you've got to get rid of somebody. No one is going to pay your asking price.
Right, so then Bale's sort of, what would have been a gigantic fee gets less gigantic.
So right now you can shop him around, call Chelsea say, we'll give you 80. You call United and say, hey, they're going to give us 80. How about you give us 90?
And also then the fullback position is, you just keep Gareth Bale, which is kind of a magnificent fullback position to have. Your fullback position is the position that pretty much every other team in the world would want to have.
Things could be worse. Things could be worse. But things are good for our next scoutie, Kai Havertz.
Yes.
Scouted by Dylan Veach. Kai Havertz, the 18-year-old midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. This is pretty interesting.
Yep.
Kai recently penned his first pro contract, signing on another 5 years with Leverkusen. I think he's an academy player, if you're wondering how it could be another 5 years. Bayern's sporting director has confirmed that part of the reason why Hakan Çalhanoğlu was allowed to depart from Milan is because they feel Havertz is ready to take over his role. In addition, the Bundesliga website recently described Kai as 50% Ballack, 50% Ozil, 100% talented.
15% concentrated power of will.
Nice. Nice, and also boo.
Okay, we've already read Marcus McCarthy's Kyle Walker-Peters report, so let's move on to Steve Renard scouting Yuri Tillemans, a Darryl favourite, the 20-year-old Belgian midfielder who now plays for Monaco. Steve says Yuri subbed on for Falcao in the 87th minute of Monaco's season-opening 3-2 win over Toulouse. Steve has decided that this is the first building block in the path towards a bright future.
He also included the gif of Tielemans'
it.
chest settling a 40-yard pass. Not bad.
So, it's towards the end of the game, and he doesn't just chest settle it. He almost does a weird freestyle trick where he rolls it across his shoulders, and I think then wins a free kick after he
then
brings
gets
it down.
fouled and then kind of G's up the crowd a little bit, which, it's what you want to see.
So when I first saw that footage, I was like, oh, look at him, bossing the game in the 87th minute. I really thought he'd played the whole game, and this was the final flourish. I didn't know that he'd only just come on to see out the game.
Yeah.
I guess
changes things.
Sell some more players, Monaco, so that Tielemans can start.
Building block. That's what we're going with. Up next, Keith Kalmbach scouting Federico Swerve Valverde, the 19-year-old Uruguayan attacker for Deportivo La Coruña.
On loan from Real Madrid, I believe. Yeah.
Valverde looked sharp in a 6-1 demolition of UD Samosas. Interesting. He bagged an assist that bypassed 8 players and then scored a free kick from about 50 yards out. The goalkeeper was stunned, not surprisingly. Keith notes that La Liga has much tougher defenses, but the assist was top class and a sign that Valverde is continuing to develop.
I saw both these goals. That free kick is from a ridiculous distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he said 5 yards from midfield. Is it 5 yards on...
He's in 5 yards in his own defensive half of midfield.
There it is. Okay.
Steps up to take the free kick.
So then way more than 50 yards.
Yep. Goalkeeper's just not ready, so he sort of bangs it over his head into the top netting.
Crafty.
And all the crowd is like, what? And then a big cheer. Yeah. So, but this is going to be really exciting because Valverde is one of those guys that... it's another to me, maybe he shouldn't be at Real Madrid because he's not going to get starting minutes. But then... there's a good loan move to Deportivo La Coruña, which is a big Spanish team. He gets to start for them and really get the experience of being a first-team player.
All right.
Yeah.
So, reasons for optimism. Again, it's a happier scouting report.
It is, right, so far. Let's see what Josh Cooper has to say about Henry Onyekuru, the 20-year-old Nigerian forward for Anderlecht on loan from Everton. Josh says, after reportedly being contacted by 47 different clubs...
That's what his agent said.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Onyekuru signed for Everton this summer. However, the Toffees were worried about his ability to get a work permit, so they loaned him to Anderlecht for the season. He didn't play in Anderlecht's league opener, boo, but was integral in their only goal in a 1-0 league win over Oostende. Hooray?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 5th place in the table right now, I believe, was the end of that report.
Look at you knowing Belgian things.
No, it was reported. I just didn't include it there. Ryan Marzak scouting Josh Onoma, the 20-year-old English midfielder for Tottenham. Onoma recently signed a contract extension with Spurs that will keep him at the club until 2021. That renewal played a major part in Pochettino agreeing to let Onoma go out on a season-long loan to Aston Villa, where Steve Bruce will be intent on returning the Villains to the Premier League.
So I'm conflicted on this. You know I'm a huge Josh Onoma fan.
I do.
Right? After I watched him in the U20 World Cup, I was super impressed. I kind of hope this was his breakthrough season at Spurs. I think I'll settle for him going to Villa.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me a little bit concerned is that we've heard from various people, including I think Will Parchment, that Pochettino doesn't like sending people out on loan. He'd rather they develop according to his basically coaching standards, his style of play.
Yeah.
So if they're sending a player out on loan, it makes you wonder if maybe it's sort of maybe you're a little bit surplus to requirements, or maybe it's just you're that close to starting that we want to get you minutes.
That's what I think. It may be. This is the optimistic version in my head: is you've got the style of play down. You just need to go play. So go do it, even if it has to be at Aston Villa.
Yep. Well, that is the case for another player, but we will not get to him because instead we've got one more from Vic Savage.
Vic Savage is scouting Ricardo Kishner. Did you jump ahead too far then?
No, I just knew what was coming because I wrote all these.
Vic Savage is scouting Ricardo Kishner, the 22-year-old Dutch forward who plays for Lazio. Kishner is now back at Lazio after making 11 goalless league appearances during his time on loan with Lille. That said, he's likely heading to a smaller club, either Hellas Verona or Benevento, both of which were promoted from Serie B. Keep it up, Ricardo Kishner. Not keep it up, get back on it.
I just want to add, listeners, when I edited this, I wrote both of whom were promoted. Daryl went with both of which, and Daryl is correct, because a club can't be a person. Good job, Daryl. Final report is Kate Bochanek scouting Timothy Fosu-Mensah.
There's a Supreme Court case that says otherwise at some point.
There may have been. Scouting Timothy Fosu-Mensah, the 19-year-old Dutch defender for Manchester United, for now, because Fosu-Mensah is reportedly undergoing a medical with Crystal Palace. Mourinho evidently wants to get him more first-team experience on a weekly basis, so he's sending him out on loan. So despite impressing, new club for Fosu-Mensah.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so I just realised that if anyone's listened to our show for the first time here, they'd heard all the Premier League stuff, which is very familiar. Scouting Network would have been just bizarre.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yes.
What is going on here?
Yes. Should we talk about it then, or should we just leave it as a cliffhanger?
Well, we should just explain it that it is a way that we support ourselves on the show is we ask listeners to subscribe to TSS, support the show, help us keep making shows, and then we have this thing called the Scouting Network where we assign you a young player to keep track of and send us reports. And that's what you just heard was, 12 reports from the Scouting Network.
And I don't know if this is pretentious, but if it is, it is. Part of the reason why we do this, and part of the reason why we're not saying if you would like to join the Scouting Network, then go to our Patreon, is because we started doing this before Patreon existed.
That's true, yeah.
So I feel I need to clarify that we've been doing this for a while, and it's been great because it allows us to keep up with players that I just completely forgot about, or young players who are suddenly playing for a club, and I didn't really know that could happen.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So thank you to Todd, to John, to Charles, to Beth and Alex, to Dylan, Marcus, Steve, Keith, Josh, Ryan, Vic, and Kate.
I feel like that time you forgot how many there were.
I took a deep enough breath.
Good job.
I made it, yeah. If you'd like to join the Scout Network, it is totalsoccershow.com/join.
You know who else took a deep breath?
Who's that?
Drogon, right before he heard Dracarys. You're welcome.
Oh, you tied it all together. Well done, buddy.
Hey, don't call it out. Somebody told me not to.
Listeners, thank you for listening.
We're getting punchy. It's a sign that we've been recording for over an hour.
Taylor, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back later in the week with more Total Soccer Show.